Oh, shall I? Is this working? At any rate, in your booklets right now, there's a smaller booklet about the Tulane City Center, and it lists a sampling of the more than 85 projects we've completed since Hurricane Katrina, give you a sense of the range of things we're doing. I'm going to talk I misunderstood the instructions, so I'm going to talk for about 10 minutes about each of those 85 projects. Sit back. But anyway, that'll give you a little bit of a sense of the range of things we do because, of course, today I can only talk briefly about the Tulane City Center. The City Center came into existence right after Hurricane Katrina. We have been in existence then for about 77 months at this point. I've got 77 projects completed down here. That doesn't include the current and ongoing projects, and we're actually just now shifting to the second of our design build projects that's underway right now because the first one needed to be complete by Mardi Gras Day. It was for a Mardi Gras Indian troupe, a big kind of performance stage in the Upper Ninth Ward for that group. Over that period of time, we've involved almost all the faculty members in the School of Architecture who have an interest in community engagement. That's 34 or so out of the about 40 faculty members we have here. We've involved almost every student in the School of Architecture, some more than once, in projects. We're up to about 520 students now engaged in Tulane City Center projects in the community. Together with the Urban Build program, we've completed 7 single-family houses. We have, about 16 projects running at any given time. And we do that with 12, I'm sorry, that was a wishful thinking. We do that with 2.5 full-time staff members. I'm the half, which my other staff members will gladly endorse. The program is run almost entirely with student labor. The students are learning through this engagement, and they're deeply committed to the work in the community. In fact, many of our students specify, especially the graduate students who come here, that they're coming here specifically because Tulane School of Architecture and the City Center and the Urban Build program will afford them the opportunities to engage the community in ways that they have in mind. Our projects are scattered throughout the city. Each one of those dots represents a constructed project here in the city. Of course, if we put all the project locations on here, the dots would cover the map. Those dots tend to fall within a zone that we've kind of defined as the zone of greatest demonstration opportunity in the city. That zone, articulated in yellow here, is the area between what we call the zero line in New Orleans, sea level, and the extent of the flooding in Katrina, the dotted line that's slightly above sea level because of the storm surge. That zone is an area fairly hard hit by the storm, but also promising as an area of the city that could experience great change and that still has a working infrastructure that can be built upon and rescued. So most of our projects fall within that territory. Of course, projects in this area are well on high ground. Projects below that are in very low-lying areas of the city that have proved very challenging to reconstruct, and we hope to offer instructive ideas about rebuilding those areas based on the kinds of projects we can produce in the yellow zone with a greater probability of success. Since I only have a few minutes to talk to you today, I wanted to just tell you about one of the projects we've been working on. It's a project that I think combines most of the characteristics of what the City Center can bring to projects in the community. In some ways, Michael's slip of the tongue, where he described us as the School of Agriculture, might fit in this particular project, which combines architecture and agriculture in something we call urban agriculture initiatives here in the city. This is the Grodat Youth Farm. This is a new nonprofit that the Tulane City Center created. That is to say, we saw a need in the community. We saw resources here at the Tulane University in the School of Medicine, the School of Law, the School of Business, the Social Entrepreneurship Initiative, the Cowan Initiative for higher education, for elementary and secondary education. And all of these components could group together, could pull together to create an entity to serve a much needed component of our community. And that was to take high school students who typically have terrible eating habits, as you may know, from the New Orleans area, and give them after-school employment, learning urban agriculture and basic leadership skills. They also learn business and marketing skills in the meaningful work of growing healthy food in the community. We created this nonprofit really just so that we could build them a really cool building to work in. So it's necessary to make excuses for good architecture, I realize. And this is also an opportunity for us to bring those students of architecture together around a number of pressing issues that correspond to issues citywide here in New Orleans, especially those issues touching on water management, water sequestration, and so on. So I led a group of students together with a landscape architect named Abigail Feldman in the design of a farm facility on a 4-acre site in New Orleans City Park. This is, as you can see in this map of New Orleans, City Park is an enormous parcel of land in the center of our city. It receives no state or city funding, so it's an entirely privately supported civic entity. The Grodat Youth Farm is 4 acres within that larger whole, and you can see it called out in red on the screen. It's a partially wooded area, which if you know anything about agriculture, that sucks. But anyway, what we're working on here, pardon me, is trying to make a kind of agriculture that integrates an understanding of the natural environment, of natural processes, as well as agricultural production. The site is then organized by our students into farm parcels. That farm parceling is done by a very complex analysis of topography, of soil type, of drainage, and of, pardon me, heirloom farming sizes, which turns out to be 50 by 50. And this produces overall an organization of space that puts buildings where crops can't grow, which puts water sequestration where crops can't grow and buildings can't be located, and then maximizes the existing arable land, preserving all the native species growing on the site and removing all the invasive species, especially a tree called the Chinese tallow tree. We located buildings then on that site, as I described, and we're constructing them right now out of used shipping containers. Shipping containers, pardon me, were the special pet project of one of our donors. And so even though I thought shipping containers were a terrible idea for building a farm in a hot, humid climate, we've decided to use them because he paid for them. Also, they make fantastic little structural entities as they're positioned on the site, and provided we shade them properly and engage them properly, they make actual great supports for the cellular spaces that support our very large working spaces. You can see those shipping containers configured along the edge here. They're used as kitchen storage, cold storage, and tool storage in these areas, locker rooms, and a composting toilet restroom located over here. The spaces created by those shipping containers form large important spaces like classroom and the food preparation area, and also a large event space occurring here in the center. The students doing the design work then develop the green facade, the appearance of the building. We use these kinds of images of what the project will be like to both confirm with our community partners the correctness of the design, to confirm with consulting engineers the function of the design, and most importantly, to confirm with our various partners, especially the financial sponsors of the project, that it's worth supporting. To date, we've raised about $720,000 to support the construction of this project and the program. The majority of that money goes to support the actual program here, as opposed to the building itself. The bricks and mortar money forms a very small portion of that total. Then we set about the task of building it. Design is one thing the architecture students typically do very well. Engaging the community is something new to them, and they learn it through the design studio, and then they really engage the community and the mud. The students here poured the foundations for these projects. They were augured holes. They moved the shipping containers into place. They figured out how to get cranes around the site without cutting down any trees. We then brought in a second batch of students to design the subsets within that larger whole. That second batch of students then produced the build-out and performed the build-out. These students have been involved in the creation of swales and erosion control, water management. We're working on the very small amount of conditioning space, permeable surfaces, gray water filtration. We started out with no welders and wound up with 8 students doing welding work on this project, steel detailing, the interior build-outs, composting toilets, and coordinating with the subcontractors on the site, which was a very important lesson, I think, for our students to gather. Composting toilet technologies and gray water filtration are not allowed in Louisiana any more than cisterns are allowed, but this happens to be a piece of state ground, and we've gotten permission from the state fire marshal to experiment with those systems in that location. You can see the students out on the site. This is in the fall, working hard to build that construction, talking here to the concrete contractors, and here welding the steel together and adding wooden roof elements. This is where the students in the fall started in October, and here's where they ended up at the end of the semester. The project is right now very close to completion out in City Park, and I think well worth a visit. This involves huge numbers of students. We're up to about 50 students now who've been involved in one phase or another of this project, all the way from its initial conception to the construction of the project. And with that, I'll give way to Byron Mouton and his Urban Build program.